The blood hit the floor before the screaming started. Maya Chen's hands were already moving, muscle memory taking over as the gurney crashed through the ER doors. Gunshot wound to the abdomen. 22 years old. Fading fast. She had maybe 3 minutes to stabilize him before they lost him entirely. Her shift supervisor was shouting orders. Someone was calling for the surgeon. The kid's mother was wailing in the waiting room, a sound that would haunt Maya's dreams for weeks. But right now, in this moment, there was only the work. Only the desperate fight to keep a stranger's heart beating. 17 minutes later, they'd stabilized him enough for surgery. Maya stepped back from the gurney, her scrubs splattered with blood that wasn't hers. Her hands shaking with adrenaline she couldn't afford to release. Not yet. Not with 6 more hours left on her shift. She looked at the clock. 3:47 a.m. The fluorescent lights of Memorial Grace Hospital hummed their mechanical lullaby, the soundtrack to another endless night. The waiting room was a human warehouse, packed wall-to-wall with suffering. A child burning with fever, an old man clutching his chest, a woman with a gash across her forehead. All of them waiting, all of them desperate, all of them invisible to each other in their private agonies. Maya pushed a strand of dark hair from her face, leaving a small smear of blood on her temple that she didn't notice. At 27, she'd been doing this for 5 years. 5 years of watching people at their absolute worst and their unexpected best. 5 years of student loan payments that never seemed to shrink. 5 years of double shifts and empty bank accounts and wondering if she'd made a terrible mistake choosing a profession that demanded everything and paid back almost nothing. Almost nothing, but not quite nothing, because there were moments, small moments, like when a patient squeezed her hand and whispered, "Thank you," with their last bit of strength. Like when a mother's eyes met hers across a hospital bed and communicated an entire conversation without words. Like when she saw someone go from believing they were dying to believing they might actually live. Those moments were why she was still here, why she kept showing up, why she hadn't quit like 3 of her nursing school classmates had already done. She grabbed a new pair of gloves from the supply cart and headed toward exam room 4. That's when she saw him. At first, he was just another body in the hallway. There were always bodies in the hallway on nights like this. People sitting on the floor, leaning against walls, waiting their turn in the brutal calculus of emergency room triage. But something made her look twice. He was sitting with his back against the wall near the vending machines, knees pulled up, head down. Mid-30s maybe, dark hair hanging wet and tangled, dripping water onto the already dirty linoleum. His clothes were destroyed, jeans ripped at both knees and one thigh, a gray hoodie so stained it might have once been white. His arms were visible below the torn sleeves, covered in scrapes and bruises that looked fresh. Painful. He was shivering, the kind of deep, involuntary shaking that comes from being truly cold, truly exhausted, truly at the end of your rope. And everyone was walking past him. Maya watched as Dr. Harrison strode by without a glance, focused on his tablet. Watched as 2 orderlies pushed an empty wheelchair past, deep in conversation about a football game. Watched as Jennifer from radiology literally stepped over his extended leg without acknowledging his existence. He might as well have been furniture. Invisible. Maya knew that invisibility. She'd lived it. 8 months of her childhood spent sleeping in the back seat of a Honda Civic with her mother, parking in different lots each night to avoid the cops. 8 months of using gas station bathrooms to wash her face before school. 8 months of watching people's eyes slide past them like they weren't really there, like homelessness might be contagious. She still remembered the exact texture of that invisibility. The way it pressed on your chest. The way it whispered that you didn't matter, that you were less than human, that you deserved this somehow. Maya changed direction. She walked to the supply closet and grabbed a thermal blanket, the good kind they usually reserved for post-op patients. Then she approached him slowly, not wanting to startle him. "Hey," she said softly, crouching down to his level. "I'm Maya. I'm one of the nurses here. Have you been checked in?" The man lifted his head, and Maya felt something shift in her chest. His eyes, despite the exhaustion, despite the grime on his face, his eyes were extraordinary, intelligent, piercing, assessing her with an intensity that felt almost uncomfortable, like he was seeing straight through her professional mask into something deeper. "I have," he said. His voice was rough but educated. Not what she expected. "They told me it would be several hours. Busy night, they said." "It's a nightmare," Maya admitted, and she saw something flicker in his eyes. Surprise, maybe. People didn't usually tell patients the truth. "But that doesn't mean you should be freezing on the floor." She unfolded the blanket and draped it around his shoulders, careful not to touch the injuries on his arms. "What's your name?" He hesitated, just for a second. "Daniel. Daniel Reed." "Okay, Daniel. What happened to you?" He gestured vaguely at his arms, at his face. "Got jumped. For guys. They wanted my wallet and phone. When I didn't hand them over fast enough, they decided to make a point." He shifted slightly and winced. "Pretty sure they cracked something in my ribs. Breathing hurts like hell." Maya's clinical brain kicked into gear. Defensive wounds on the arms. Guarding behavior. Shallow breathing. Possible rib fractures, possible pneumothorax if he was unlucky. "Did you file a police report?" Daniel shook his head, and there was something in his expression that made Maya's heart hurt. Resignation. Defeat. The look of someone who'd stopped expecting help. "What's the point?" he said quietly. "I'm nobody. They don't care about people like me." "You're not nobody," Maya said, and she put enough force behind the words that Daniel's eyes widened slightly. "You're a person who got assaulted, who's in pain, who deserves medical care and basic human dignity. And I'm going to make sure you get it. Stay right here." She stood up and walked straight to the nurse's station where Patricia was juggling 3 phones and a computer screen that kept freezing. "Patricia," Maya said. "The patient in the hallway, Daniel Reed. He's been waiting hours with possible rib fractures from an assault. We need to get him into a room." Patricia didn't even look up. "Maya, everything is full. He'll have to wait. He's sitting on the floor. So are 4 other people. He's soaking wet and shivering and probably has cracked ribs. And I've got a possible stroke in 3, a kid with a fever of 104 and 5, and a cardiac event coming in by ambulance in 10 minutes. Patricia finally looked up, and her eyes were exhausted, apologetic, but firm. "I'm triaging by medical urgency. Unless he's actively dying, he waits. That's the reality." Maya felt frustration burn in her throat, but she swallowed it. Patricia wasn't the enemy. The system was the enemy. The lack of funding, the lack of staff, the impossible choices they had to make every single shift. "Fine," Maya said, "but I'm going to take care of his wounds while he waits." Patricia waved her hand in permission, already back to her phone calls. Maya gathered supplies: antiseptic, gauze, bandages, medical tape. She loaded them onto a small tray and walked back to the hallway. Daniel was exactly where she'd left him, wrapped in the blanket, eyes closed, head tilted back against the wall. He looked younger with his eyes closed. Vulnerable. Human. "Daniel," Maya said, kneeling beside him. He opened his eyes. "I'm sorry," she said, "but every room is occupied right now. You're gonna have to wait longer. But I can at least clean these wounds, make you a little more comfortable. Is that okay?" "You don't have to do that," Daniel said. "I know you're busy." "I want to," Maya said simply. She worked carefully, methodically. She cleaned the scrapes on his arms first, using gentle pressure with the antiseptic-soaked gauze. He flinched occasionally but didn't make a sound. The cut above his eyebrow was deeper, would probably scar. She cleaned it thoroughly, applied butterfly bandages to hold it closed. "You're really good at this," Daniel said quietly. "It's what I trained for," Maya replied, focusing on her work. "Why nursing?" Daniel asked. "You could have done anything. Medical school. Research. Why choose this?" Maya paused, considering how much truth to tell the stranger. Then decided truth was all she had to offer. "Because I know what it feels like to be invisible," she said. "When I was 9, my dad left. Just walked out one day and never came back. My mom tried to hold it together, but we lost our apartment. Lost everything, really. We lived in our car for 8 months. She finished bandaging his arm and moved to the next injury. I remember how people looked at us. Or didn't look at us, really. They'd stare straight through us like we were ghosts. Like we'd stopped being human because we didn't have an address. Daniel was very still, watching her face. One night, Maya continued, my mom got really sick. Fever, chills, couldn't stop throwing up. We went to an ER a lot like this one. And this one nurse, I don't even remember her name, but she brought my mom a blanket and sat with us for 20 minutes when things were slow. She talked to us like we were people. She saw us. Maya secured the last bandage. That nurse is the reason I'm here, because I want to be the person who sees people, especially the ones everyone else walks past. The silence stretched between them, heavy with meaning. I'm sorry that happened to you, Daniel finally said. To you and your mom. It taught me something important, Maya said. That circumstances are temporary, that everyone has a story, that worth isn't determined by what you own or where you sleep. She stood up. There. You're cleaner, at least. Are you hungry? You've already done more than enough. That's not what I asked. Maya smiled. Are you hungry? Daniel hesitated, then nodded. Wait here, Maya said. She walked to the break room, opened her locker, and stared at the contents. One granola bar, one apple that was starting to get soft, a bottle of water, her lunch for tomorrow. She was already running on fumes, already exhausted, already hungry. Tomorrow's shift would be just as brutal as tonight's. She grabbed the granola bar and the apple. On her way back, she stopped at the vending machine. She had $12.37 in her checking account. Payday was 3 days away. She needed to buy gas tomorrow, needed to eat. She fed $4 into the machine and selected a coffee. Black, 2 sugars, because she'd noticed he'd wrapped the blanket tighter when the vending machine area got drafty, and hot coffee might help. When she returned, Daniel accepted the food and coffee with an expression she couldn't quite read. Gratitude, yes, but also something else. Something that looked almost like pain. Thank you, he said quietly. You have no idea what this means. Everyone deserves basic kindness, Maya said. It's not complicated. But Daniel was looking at her like she'd said something profound. Over the next 2.5 hours, Maya's shift became a kind of controlled chaos. A car accident victim, a diabetic emergency, an elderly woman who'd fallen and broken her hip. Each crisis demanded her complete attention, her total focus. But in the gaps between emergencies, she found herself checking on Daniel. She brought him a warm washcloth so he could clean his face. She convinced the attending physician, Dr. Martinez, to examine him during a brief lull. She stayed nearby during the examination, watching Dr. Martinez confirm what they both suspected. 2 fractured ribs, multiple contusions, the lacerations Maya had already treated. You need to rest, Dr. Martinez told Daniel, writing a prescription. No strenuous activity. Take these for the pain. Follow up with your primary care physician in a week. Daniel stared at the prescription with an expression Maya recognized. The math of poverty. The calculation of whether pain medication was worth not eating for 3 days. After Dr. Martinez left, Maya sat down next to Daniel on the floor, her own exhaustion finally catching up with her. You're not going to fill that, are you? She said quietly. Daniel shook his head. Can't afford it. It's fine. I've dealt with worse. They sat in silence for a moment. Where will you go? Maya asked. When you leave here? Daniel was quiet. I'll figure something out. There's a shelter on 5th that sometimes has space. If not, there's an overpass where some people sleep. I'll manage. Maya thought about her tiny studio apartment. The second-hand couch, the mattress on the floor, the refrigerator that contained 1 carton of eggs and half a jar of peanut butter. It wasn't much, but it was warm. It was dry. It was safe. She almost offered. The words were right there. You could crash on my couch for a few days just until your ribs heal. But she was a single woman. He was a stranger. And despite the connection she felt, despite the conviction that he was a good person, she'd been trained better than that. Compassion had limits. Safety had to come first. The guilt of not offering burned in her chest anyway. "I'm sorry," she said. "I wish I could do more." "You've already done more than anyone else," Daniel said. He turned to look at her directly, and again those eyes pierced through her. "Why? Really why? You're exhausted. You're overworked. You bought me coffee with money you probably need. Why go out of your way for someone you don't know?" Maya thought about lying, about giving him the professional answer, the compassionate nurse response. But something about this moment felt too honest for lies. "Because I can," she said simply. "Because I was that kid sleeping in a car, invisible to everyone. Because someone helped us once, and it mattered. Because the world is brutal enough without us making it worse by walking past each other." She smiled tiredly. "And because you seem like a decent person who got dealt a shit hand tonight. That's reason enough." Daniel's expression was unreadable. "You're extraordinary. You know that." Maya laughed, short and bitter. "I'm broke, exhausted, and my life is a disaster. But sure, extraordinary. The two aren't mutually exclusive," Daniel said quietly. Something in his tone made Maya look at him more carefully. There was something about him that didn't quite fit. The way he spoke, the way he held himself despite the injuries, the intelligence in those eyes. But she was too tired to analyze it. Her phone buzzed. Patricia texting that they had incoming, multiple victims from a house fire. "I have to go," Maya said, standing up. "I know," Daniel said. "Thank you, Maya, for everything, for seeing me. Take care of yourself," Maya said. "Please." Daniel nodded, and Maya rushed toward the ambulance bay. By the time her shift ended at 7 a.m., Daniel was gone. The blanket was folded neatly on the chair where he'd been sitting. For some reason, that folded blanket made Maya's eyes sting with tears she was too exhausted to shed. She drove home in a daze, fell into bed still wearing her scrubs, and slept the dreamless sleep of complete exhaustion. Over the next 2 weeks, Maya thought about Daniel often, wondered if he was safe, if his ribs were healing, if he'd found somewhere warm to sleep. But the hospital consumed her as it always did. New patients, new crises, new reasons to push past exhaustion. Then, on a Thursday afternoon, her phone rang. Unknown number. "Is this Maya Chen?" a woman's voice asked. Professional, polished. "Yes. Ms. Chen, my name is Victoria Lang. I'm calling on behalf of Mr. Daniel Christopher Reed. He would very much like to meet with you, if you're available. Would tomorrow afternoon be possible?" Maya frowned. "Daniel Christopher Reed? I don't think I know anyone by that name." "You may know him as Daniel, from Memorial Grace Hospital Emergency Department." Maya's heart jumped. "Is he okay? Did something happen?" "He's perfectly fine, Miss Chun. He simply wishes to speak with you in person. Would 3 p.m. tomorrow work? At the Pinnacle Grand Hotel." The Pinnacle Grand Hotel. The most expensive hotel in the city. The kind of place Maya had only seen in magazines. Yes, okay. 3 p.m. Excellent. Someone will meet you in the lobby. Thank you, Ms. Chun." The line went dead. Maya stared at her phone, completely confused. Why would Daniel be at the Pinnacle Grand? Had someone helped him? Was he working there? None of it made sense. The next afternoon, Maya dressed in her only nice outfit. A simple black dress she'd bought for her nursing school graduation and a cardigan that was starting to pill at the elbows. She felt ridiculously underdressed the moment she stepped into the Pinnacle's lobby. The lobby was all marble and gold, with crystal chandeliers and modern art on the walls. The other people there looked like they belonged in a different universe from Maya. Designer clothes, expensive jewelry, the casual confidence of wealth. Ms. Chen, a woman approached her, mid-40s, stunning in a tailored suit that probably cost more than Maya's monthly rent. "I'm Victoria Lang. Thank you so much for coming. Please, follow me." Victoria led her through the hotel, past restaurants and lounges that looked like they belonged in movies, to a private dining room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. And there, standing by those windows, was someone who looked like Daniel but couldn't possibly be Daniel. The man was wearing a suit that fit him like it had been made for his body specifically. His dark hair was styled. His face was clean-shaven, revealing sharp features and a strong jaw. He looked like he'd walked out of a boardroom or off the cover of a business magazine. Confident, powerful, successful. But his eyes, those eyes were the same. "Maya," he said, turning to face her. "Thank you for coming. Please, sit down." Maya's mind was reeling. "Daniel? What is this? What's going on?" "Please." He gestured to a chair at an elegantly set table. "Let me explain everything. You deserve to know the truth." Maya sat, her heart pounding. Daniel sat across from her, and for a moment he just looked at her. Really looked at her in that intense way he had. "My full name," he began, "is Daniel Christopher Reed III. I'm the CEO of Reed Global Enterprises. We're a technology and investment firm. We're worth about $8 billion, depending on the market." Maya stared at him. The words weren't making sense. "I inherited the company when I was 25, Daniel continued. "My parents died in a plane crash. Small aircraft, mechanical failure. One day I was their son. The next day I was running a company with 12,000 employees and responsibilities I wasn't remotely prepared for." He paused. "I've spent the last 8 years building it, growing it, making it successful. And the whole time, I've been becoming more isolated, more lonely, more certain that no one actually sees me as a person anymore." "I don't understand," Maya said quietly. But she was a single woman. He was a stranger. And despite the connection she felt, despite the conviction that he was a good person, she'd been trained better than that. Compassion had limits. Safety had to come first. The guilt of not offering burned in her chest anyway. "I'm sorry," she said. "I wish I could do more." "You've already done more than anyone else," Daniel said. He turned to look at her directly, and again those eyes pierced through her. "Why? Really why? You're exhausted. You're overworked. You bought me coffee with money you probably need. Why go out of your way for someone you don't know?" Maya thought about lying, about giving him the professional answer, the compassionate nurse response. But something about this moment felt too honest for lies. "Because I can," she said simply. "Because I was that kid sleeping in a car, invisible to everyone. Because someone helped us once, and it mattered. Because the world is brutal enough without us making it worse by walking past each other." She smiled tiredly. "And because you seem like a decent person who got dealt a shit hand tonight. That's reason enough." Daniel's expression was unreadable. "You're extraordinary. You know that." Maya laughed, short and bitter. "I'm broke, exhausted, and my life is a disaster. But sure, extraordinary. The two aren't mutually exclusive," Daniel said quietly. Something in his tone made Maya look at him more carefully. There was something about him that didn't quite fit. The way he spoke, the way he held himself despite the injuries, the intelligence in those eyes. But she was too tired to analyze it. Her phone buzzed. Patricia texting that they had incoming, multiple victims from a house fire. "I have to go," Maya said, standing up. "I know," Daniel said. "Thank you, Maya, for everything, for seeing me." "Take care of yourself," Maya said. "Why we help? We help because that's what being human means." See you in the next video.